The hallway fell silent the moment it happened. A tall, clean-cut young man in a navy blue Letterman jacket sneered down at the janitor, kneeling by the lockers. A gray bucket stood beside the old man, the mop water murky from cleaning other people's messes. "Watch where you're going, old man," the boy said with disgust. Then, without warning, he spat right in the janitor's face. A gasp echoed across the hall. The janitor didn't move. He didn't shout back. He just wiped his cheek with the back of his trembling hand, his brown eyes calm to calm. The boy smirked. "Guess they'll hire anyone these days. Maybe next time, you'll clean faster." Laughter from a small group of students followed as they walked away, their expensive sneakers squeaking against the floor. The janitor, Mr. Harris, stood there quietly. His uniform was faded, his hands rough like sandpaper, and his back slightly bent from years of work. But his face, lined, weathered, and patient, didn't show anger, only sadness. He finished mopping the spill, wrung the mop, and pushed the bucket down the hall. Not one teacher stepped out of their classroom. Not one student helped him. But in that moment, something changed, though no one knew it yet. Later, in the teacher's lounge, whispers began. "Did you see what Tyler did?" One teacher said. "Poor Mr. Harris." Another sighed. "But he never talks. Just cleans and goes home." No one knew where Mr. Harris lived. No one knew his story. That night, Tyler boasted about it to his friends at the diner. "Just a janitor," he said between bites of fries. "They get paid to clean up our trash. Who cares?" But one man sitting at the counter turned his head. A stranger, older, wearing a worn army jacket. His sharp eyes locked on Tyler. He spoke quietly. "You should be careful who you spit on, boy. Some men have seen things you can't imagine." Tyler rolled his eyes. "Yeah, okay, Grandpa." The man smiled sadly, stood up, and walked away. When the diner door closed, the waitress leaned over to Tyler and said, "You know who that janitor is, right?" Tyler frowned. "What? Some nobody who cleans toilets?" She shook her head. "That nobody saved lives." Tyler laughed. Sure he did. But that night, as he drove home, something about the old man's calm eyes stayed with him, the same eyes that didn't flinch, even when he was spat on. He didn't know that tomorrow everything would change. Because when Tyler walked into school the next morning, he saw something that made his stomach drop. Pinned on the janitor's chest, gleaming under the fluorescent light, was a small medal, and even from across the hall, Tyler recognized it instantly. It was the Medal of Honor. The hallway buzzed like a beehive that morning. Students whispered in tight clusters, eyes darting toward the janitor's closet. Tyler stopped cold when he saw Mr. Harris pushing his mop cart, same as always, except now there was something new pinned to his chest. A small, shining medal, blue ribbon, gold star, surrounded by quiet power. It wasn't some cheap badge or trinket. It was the Medal of Honor, the highest award in the United States military. Even Tyler, who never cared about history, had seen one before, on TV. Pinned two heroes, who'd saved entire platoons, who'd run through fire for others. He blinked, thinking it had to be fake. "No way," he muttered under his breath. But then Principal Lewis came rushing down the hall, his eyes wide. "Mr. Harris, I didn't know," he said breathlessly. "Why didn't you ever tell us?" Mr. Harris just smiled faintly. "Didn't think it mattered." "It matters," Lewis whispered. "My God, it matters." The hallway went silent again. Even the students who used to joke about the janitor now stared in awe. Tyler's friend Josh elbowed him. "Bro, that's gotta be a mistake, right? Like, maybe it's from eBay or something." Tyler forced a laugh, but it came out shaky. "Yeah, sure." But when a news crew showed up an hour later, and the local police chief shook Mr. Harris's hand, Tyler knew it wasn't fake. That afternoon, the principal called an emergency assembly. The entire gym filled with students. Cameras flashed. On the stage stood the quiet janitor everyone had ignored. The principal's voice echoed through the mic. Today, we discovered something extraordinary about one of our own. Mr. Harris isn't just our janitor. He's Sergeant Raymond Harris, a decorated veteran who risked his life in Afghanistan to save 12 soldiers trapped under enemy fire. A ripple of shock rolled through the room. Tyler's stomach twisted. The principal continued. He received the Medal of Honor for his bravery. But when he returned home, he never told anyone. He just wanted to work in peace. Mr. Harris stepped forward slowly. The gym lights gleamed off his medal. He looked out at the crowd, at the students who once mocked him, and spoke into the microphone. His voice calm, deep, and steady. I don't need applause, he said. I didn't clean this school for praise. I did it because I believe no job is beneath anyone. We all serve in different ways. You could have heard a pin drop. He paused, then looked straight at Tyler. Their eyes met. I've been spit on before, he said quietly. By enemies, by strangers. I never thought it'd happen in my own country, or in a school. Gasps broke out. Tyler's face went pale. Mr. Harris didn't say his name. He didn't have to. He continued. Respect isn't earned by the clothes you wear, or the job you do. It's earned by how you treat others, especially when no one's watching. The audience stood and began clapping, slow at first, then louder, until the entire gym thundered. But Tyler couldn't clap. His chest felt tight, his ears rang. All he could see was the man he'd humiliated, standing there with the nation's highest honor pinned over his heart. The man he'd called just a janitor. Mr. Harris stepped down from the stage and walked past him, quiet, composed. Tyler opened his mouth to speak, but the words died in his throat. And as the old man passed, he said softly, just for him to hear, be better than your worst moment, son. Tyler blinked, but Mr. Harris was already walking away, mop cart squeaking down the hall. He never looked back. Tyler sat there frozen, realizing that sometimes the people we look down on are the ones standing far above us. But that wasn't the end, because the next day, a storm would hit, one that would push Tyler to the edge and show whether he'd learned anything at all. It happened 3 days later. The morning started normal, kids rushing through halls, lockers slamming, laughter echoing until someone smelled smoke. At first, nobody paid attention. But then, a shriek pierced the air. Fire! There's a fire in the science wing. Panic exploded like a bomb. Students poured out of classrooms, shouting, pushing, crying. The alarms blared, red lights flashing across the walls. Tyler was in the middle of the crowd when he saw it, flames curling up the hallway near the chemistry lab. Thick smoke rolled like a black wave. Everybody out. The teachers yelled. Tyler turned to run, but then he heard something faint. A voice, small, trembling. Help, please. He froze. It came from the far end of the hall, near the fire. He turned and saw a little freshman girl trapped behind a fallen metal shelf. Her backpack was pinned, and the smoke was closing in. The crowd rushed past him, not looking back. But Tyler couldn't move. He wanted to run. Every instinct screamed, get out. But that voice, it wouldn't stop echoing. Then, through the smoke, a figure appeared. Mr. Harris. He wasn't running from the fire. He was walking into it. Sir, you can't go in there, Tyler shouted, but Mr. Harris didn't even pause. He pulled off his jacket, wrapped it around his arm, and kicked through the flaming debris. The heat roared around him, but he kept going. Tyler's heart pounded. He couldn't just stand there. He ripped off his hoodie and followed. Inside, the air burned his lungs. The smoke made his eyes sting. He could barely see the floor. Over here, the girl cried. Mr. Harris lifted the shelf with a grunt, muscles straining under his worn uniform. Tyler rushed to pull the girl free. Together, they dragged her out into the hallway. The ceiling groaned above them. A beam crashed down just behind their feet. Go get her outside, Mr. Harris shouted. Tyler pulled the girl toward The exit, he looked back. Harris was still in there, grabbing a fire extinguisher, beating down flames near the storage door. "Come on," Tyler yelled. "Forget it. It's too dangerous." "But Mr. Harris turned, eyes fierce under the smoke. "I don't leave anyone behind." Those words hit Tyler like lightning. He helped the girl out into the open air, where paramedics waited. Then, coughing hard, he ran back toward the building. "Mr. Harris," he shouted. He could hear the fire trucks, the sirens, but inside, it was chaos. The fire was spreading fast. "Mr. Harris," he yelled again, pushing through the smoke until he saw him on the floor. Half conscious, a beam trapping his leg. Tyler's heart raced. He didn't think, he just acted. He grabbed the beam and pulled with everything he had. His muscles screamed. The heat licked at his skin. Finally, it moved just enough. "Come on," he gasped, hauling Mr. Harris up. Together, they stumbled toward the light, coughing, choking, burning, until at last, they burst through the doors into daylight. The crowd outside erupted. Teachers screamed. Firefighters ran toward them. Mr. Harris collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. Tyler knelt beside him, tears cutting streaks through the soot on his face. "You could have died," Tyler said, voice breaking. Mr. Harris looked at him and smiled weakly. "So could you?" The firefighters rushed them both to safety, and for the first time in his life, Tyler didn't feel proud, popular, or powerful. He just felt small and deeply grateful. But the story didn't end there, because the next morning, the whole town would see what happened inside that fire, and the truth would finally burn brighter than the flames ever did by the next morning. Everyone in town had seen it, the video. It started as shaky cell phone footage posted by a student who'd been outside during the fire. It showed smoke pouring from the school, people screaming, and then, through the chaos, a janitor running back inside. The caption read, "This man just ran into a burning building to save a student." Within hours, the clip went viral. News channels replayed it. Social media exploded with comments. "That's our janitor, Mr. Harris. Wait, the Medal of Honor guy. He saved someone again." By lunchtime, the local paper had already printed a front-page headline, "Hometown Hero Acts. Again, school janitor saves student in fire." Tyler stared at the screen in disbelief. The whole world now knew what kind of man he had spat on just days ago. His phone buzzed non-stop with messages from friends. "Bro, you were there. Wait, you helped too. Did you know he was that guy?" Tyler couldn't even reply. Every message just made the knot in his chest tighter. He kept replaying the moment, Harris walking into the flames, calm and fearless, like it was nothing new to him. The same man Tyler had treated like trash. At school, everyone was different now. Teachers shook Harris's hand. Students smiled at him in the halls. The same kids who used to laugh now whispered words like hero and legend. And yet, Harris didn't act like anything special had happened. He just went back to mopping floors. His limp was worse now, his hands bandaged. But he didn't complain. When Tyler finally worked up the courage to face him, he found Harris in the gym, cleaning soot from the tiles. "Mr. Harris," Tyler said quietly. The old man didn't look up right away. "Morning, son." Tyler swallowed hard. I wanted to say thank you for everything. You didn't have to go back in there. You could have died." Harris smiled softly. "Didn't think about dying. Just thought about the girl." Tyler hesitated. "You knew I followed you, right? Into the fire?" The janitor finally looked at him. His eyes were warm, proud. "Yeah, I saw you. You didn't have to go in either, but you did." Tyler blinked fast, his throat tight. I couldn't let you go alone." "That's what courage looks like," Harris said. "It's not about medals. It's about moments like that." Tyler nodded, tears stinging his eyes. "I'm sorry for what I did before. The hallway, the spit. I was stupid. You didn't deserve that." For a long moment, Harris said nothing. Then he put a hand on Tyler's shoulder, strong, steady, forgiving. "People do foolish things," he said, "but the man you become afterward, that's what matters." Tyler couldn't hold it back anymore. He broke down crying right there in the gym, the sound echoing off the walls. Harris didn't say a word. He just stood beside him, silent and kind. Later that week, the mayor announced something unexpected, a public ceremony to honor both Harris and Tyler for their bravery during the fire. Tyler tried to refuse, but Harris told him gently, "Let them see what change looks like." The ceremony was packed. Cameras flashed. The same people who once ignored Harris now stood and clapped as he walked on stage. But when it was Tyler's turn, the applause softened into murmurs. Some people remembered the viral comments, "Wasn't that the kid who spat on him?" Tyler felt the heat of shame rise again. But then Harris stepped forward and took the microphone. "Everyone makes mistakes," he said. But this young man didn't let his past define him. When it mattered, he ran toward danger, not away from it. That's redemption. That's courage. The audience stood and applauded this time, for both of them, and for the first time, Tyler didn't feel like a fraud. He felt like someone knew. But there was still one more truth about Mr. Harris that no one knew, and when it finally came out, it would shake the entire town to its core. 2 weeks after the ceremony, life began to settle again. The burned parts of the school were under repair, the smell of smoke still faint in the air. Mr. Harris returned to his quiet work, pushing his mop cart with his usual calm rhythm. He never brought up the medal, the ceremony, or the cameras. He just smiled and said, "Floors don't clean themselves." But one morning, he didn't come to work. The janitor's closet stayed locked. His cart stood untouched. By noon, whispers filled the halls again. Maybe he's sick. Maybe he retired. No, he wouldn't leave without saying goodbye. Tyler couldn't sit still. Something in his gut told him it wasn't normal. So after school, he went to the principal. "Do you know where Mr. Harris lives?" he asked. The principal hesitated. He never told anyone, just left an address on file for emergencies. "I need to check on him," Tyler said firmly. Principal Lewis nodded and handed him a folded slip of paper. The address led Tyler to the edge of town, a small, faded house surrounded by oak trees. The porch steps creaked under his shoes. He knocked once. No answer. He knocked again, harder this time. "Mr. Harris? It's Tyler." Still nothing. The door was slightly open, heart pounding. Tyler pushed it gently. Inside, everything was neat. The air smelled faintly of coffee and dust. On the wall hung framed photos, soldiers in uniform, smiling. A younger Harris stood among them, proud, unbroken. But on the small kitchen table sat something that froze Tyler in place, a sealed envelope with his name, written in careful handwriting. For Tyler. Hands trembling, he tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The words were written in blue ink, steady and strong. "Tyler, if you're reading this, I've gone to the hospital. Don't worry, I've lived through worse. But I wanted to tell you something before time gets in the way. I didn't come to this school for a paycheck. I came here because I wanted to serve again, not with a weapon, but with kindness. I wanted to show young people that dignity doesn't depend on titles. When you spat on me, I wasn't angry. I was sad, not for myself, but for what this world teaches boys like you to value. But then you proved me wrong. You showed courage, and heart, and humility. I kept the Medal of Honor locked away for years because I didn't want it to define me. But after the fire, I realized something. Maybe it wasn't mine to hide. Maybe it was meant to remind others that heroes don't disappear. They just change uniforms. Take care of yourself, son. The world needs men who rise after they fall." Tears blurred Tyler's vision. He read the last line again and again. He didn't realize how tightly he was clutching the paper until it wrinkled in his hands. Then he noticed something else. an open box under the table. Inside was a small, velvet case. The Medal of Honor. No, Tyler whispered. You can't just give this away. But there was a note attached. If I don't make it back, this belongs to you. Not because you earned it, but because you learned why it matters. Tyler pressed the medal against his chest and sank to his knees. That evening, he rushed to the hospital. When he reached the front desk, he blurted out, "Raymond Harris, what room is he in?" The nurse looked up, eyes soft. "You must be Tyler." His stomach dropped. How do you know me?" She smiled sadly. "He talked about you. Said you were like the son he never had." Tyler's breath caught. "Can I see him?" The nurse hesitated, then whispered, "You'd better hurry." Tyler ran down the hall, the medal clutched in his hand, praying he wasn't too late. Tyler's shoes squeaked across the hospital floor as he sprinted down the long hallway. Room 214. That's what the nurse had said. He stopped at the door, breathless, heart pounding. For a moment, he couldn't bring himself to turn the handle. He was terrified of what he might find, or who he might not. Finally, he pushed it open. The room was quiet, filled with the slow hum of machines. Mr. Harris lay in the bed, pale but peaceful. Tubes and monitors surrounded him, but his eyes, those calm, steady eyes, opened when he heard the door. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "You found me, son." Tyler rushed to his side, gripping his hand. I got your letter. You can't leave, okay? You're too stubborn for that." Mr. Harris chuckled softly. "Stubborn, yeah. That's what my sergeant used to say." "You saved me," Tyler said, his voice shaking. "You saved all of us. You can't just go." Harris looked at him for a long time, then nodded toward the medal clutched in Tyler's hand. "You brought it." Tyler held it up, the blue ribbon trembling. "It's yours. I can't keep this." Harris's voice was weak but steady. "No, it's ours. You showed what it means to stand up when it matters. That's all this medal ever stood for." Tyler's throat burned. "You can't talk like that. You're gonna get better. You'll be back at school, yelling at me for tracking mud through the hallway." The old man smiled faintly. "Maybe. But if not, you remember what I told you. Service doesn't end with the uniform." Tyler nodded, tears spilling freely now. Then Harris whispered, "Would you do something for me? Anything. Stand up straight." Tyler blinked, confused, but did as he was told. "Now, hold that medal over your heart." He obeyed, trembling. Mr. Harris slowly raised his hand to his forehead in a shaky but perfect salute. "You honor it well, son." Tyler tried to return the salute, but his vision blurred. "No, sir, you're the hero." The old man smiled one last time. "Maybe we both are." Then, slowly, his hand fell. The monitor beside him let out a long, steady tone. Tyler froze. His breath caught in his chest. "Mr. Harris?" But there was no answer. He stood there, silent, the weight of the medal heavy in his hand. The nurse quietly entered, eyes wet, and placed a hand on his shoulder. "He went peacefully," she whispered. "He said he was proud of you." Tyler nodded, unable to speak. A week later, the entire town gathered for the funeral. The flag-draped coffin stood at the front, surrounded by flowers and photographs, not of war, but of quiet moments. Teachers, students, veterans, and townspeople filled every seat. Even strangers came, drawn by the story of the janitor who had been so much more. Tyler stood at the podium, his voice trembling as he spoke. "I used to think heroes wore capes, or drove nice cars, or were famous. I was wrong. Heroes walk among us. They mop floors. They fix what's broken. They forgive when they have every reason not to." He looked down at the medal pinned to his jacket. Mr. Harris didn't just save lives, he changed them. He changed mine. When he stepped down, the veterans lined up and saluted in silence. The sound of the bugle filled the air. Taps, Slow and mournful, Tyler placed the Medal of Honor on the coffin, his hand shaking. "You earned it, sir. I'll carry the lessons, not the medal." Then he whispered, "Thank you for seeing more in me than I saw in myself." The crowd stood as the coffin was carried away under the afternoon sun. Months later, the school unveiled a plaque in the hallway, in honor of Sergeant Raymond Harris, who taught us that true service has no rank. Every morning, Tyler stopped by it on his way to class. Sometimes he smiled, sometimes he prayed, and every time he passed the janitor's closet. He remembered the quiet man with the gentle eyes, who taught him that respect, courage, and kindness were the greatest medals of all. Moral: never judge someone by the work they do, because some of the greatest heroes serve in silence,